seconds.
No worries.
Did you share the link with your friends
I think I did.
in
And if I
Facebook?
didn't, I told a few people. So
I tagged you in Facebook, so
yeah.
probably.
Yeah. No, I think I did. So I think it's all good. You may or may not get any of my friends on it. Who knows?
Okay. Just give me 10 more seconds. Hello, everybody. How are you? Hello, boys and girls. Welcome to a new episode of this show, the Volley Talks, in the Plus Volleyball Facebook page. Today, Wednesday, November 4th of 2020, the day after elections in the USA. And here we are in the episode number 112. A lot of volleyball talks, a lot of people, great personalities being here, and today is not the exception. I thank to my friend Jay Hosack, head coach of George Mason Patriots. Is that right?
Yes.
And once or still head coach of the national junior men's volleyball team in the USA.
A while back. No, not currently anymore, but a while back I was.
I hope so. I hope so. Well, it's a pleasure that you accepted the invite, Jay. Welcome to the Volley Talks. Please say hi to your lovely wife, Stephanie Ray Hosack, great lover of Mexican food.
Yes. Her and I grew up in Southern California and are self-professed Mexican food snobs. We go to Mexico every year on vacation, and I've surfed all up and down the whole Baja Peninsula my entire life. I love Mexico. I hope to maybe retire there someday. But yeah, that's one of our favorite places in the entire world.
Yes, I know that every year you go to Rocky Point, right?
Yeah, Puerto Peñasco. Her family has a place down there that we go to and spend a week and a half or so, and just fantastic memories and fantastic place to be. So we love going down there.
Perfect. Well, Jay, how's everything over there you live in Virginia, right? In
Yeah, we live in Northern Virginia, just outside of Fairfax by about 20 minutes or so, and it's we're just kind of getting through things, I mean, we're trying to continue with practice. We're in full team practices, which are nice, and we're getting through the election results, and hopefully no craziness happens from that. And yeah, Northern Virginia is a great place to be. We're enjoying it.
Yes, I know that. I know that. I know that this year the NCAA Final Four was scheduled to be there in George Mason, right? It's a shame it didn't make it.
Yeah, we were really excited. We had sold already 4,000 tickets by February. We were hosting it in our large basketball arena, the Eagle Bank Arena that holds 10,000 people. It's about the size of Stan Sheriff Center out in Hawaii, and kind of similar. It's a big circular joint. And we were really disappointed when everything got canceled. But luckily, the NCAA was getting ready to have their next cycle bids be awarded, and they allowed us the ability to rebid if we were interested. And of course, our administration said, absolutely, we want to be a part of that. So they opened up the bid process for us again, and thankfully they gave us the 2023 national championship. So we're really happy about that, and getting back on that schedule. And the guys are obviously excited, and the community's excited, the university's excited. So yeah, it's going to be fun to be able to host the best of the best in our backyard, and hopefully be in it as well, playing in 2023. You never know.
Yeah, I hope so too, and I can be there in 2023 in Fairfax.
You got a reservation, Alejandro. You know it. You already reserved a spot here this year. We'll give you another spot next time for sure.
All right, thanks a lot. Hey, I have the first messages for you, Jay.
Cool.
Mark West says, "Buenas tardes, jefes."
Buenas tardes, jefes. Mark West is awesome. I got to work with him in a USA camp years ago, and his son Matt West.
Matt West, yeah, I know
And
him.
I was at Penn State. We recruited pretty heavily. And obviously he chose to go to Pepperdine, which was a great fit as well. So, but Matt's a good kid and coached him on the junior national team and fantastic family. So Mark, how you doing, bud? I hope you're doing well.
And well, the great Lori Okimura is here. He's in the house. I appreciate
Lori.
Jay and his contribution so much. NCAAs at George Mason will be amazing in 2023.
Oh, thanks, Lori. Yeah, we're looking forward to it. It's like I was saying earlier, it was a bummer it all got taken away, but luckily the NCAA, had other ideas and gave us a chance. So we're looking forward to hosting everybody. Maybe you come out and you have a cocktail or two at my house.
Oh yeah, for sure. Me for sure.
Yeah, for sure. We got you.
Hey Jay, so please let us know how did you get involved in volleyball? I can imagine that you started playing in Southern California, where volleyball is huge. It's a huge thing. In which era? In the 80s, in the 90s?
So I did not grow up playing volleyball. I was a surfer growing up and skateboarded my entire life,
Oh,
and
really? Like Matt
yeah,
Karhoff?
yeah, and golf later on. Right? That was not that was nothing I got into just recently. But baseball and tennis were the two sports in high school that I played that I thought maybe I had an actual opportunity to go maybe play in college with. And unfortunately, I just did not have the grades. Nobody would recruit me. Was not eligible to go anywhere. And when I graduated high school, I was lucky that the local junior college took me in. And the first semester, literally, I failed out miserably. I was not a very good student. I didn't care too much about going to school, much to my parents' dismay. But for about 2 or 3 years, I surfed and I started a surfboard company. I was shaping and airbrushing and thought maybe I would break into the industry that way, and it just never really panned out. So I decided to go back to school. I was a bartender and a bouncer at a local comedy club in Pasadena, and thought maybe it might be time for me to maybe go back to school. So I went back to Pasadena City College and decided to go to the athletic building to talk to a couple of the coaches to see if maybe there was an opportunity for me to play. I knew that if I was an athlete, you have to have good grades in order to continue to play. That was going to keep me on the straight and narrow. So I immediately went to the baseball office. There was nobody there. I went to the tennis office down the hall, and there was nobody there. And then around the corner, I heard a bunch of girls giggling. And obviously, being a red-blooded American male at the age of 21 or 22, I turned a corner and saw a bunch of girls outside the women's volleyball office. And I walked up, and Lori Jepson was the coach of the women's team there at the time. And I asked her if there was a men's team. And she said, actually, we're starting one this year. If you'd like to play, here's the tryout dates in Hawaiian Yards. So I went to the tryouts. I don't really know how good I was, but Lori took pity on me and allowed me to be on the team. And so I made the cut. And in my first year, I was a middle blocker and I played a decent amount. And then my second year, I was a middle blocker and we had a new coach. Lori wasn't going to do both men's and women's. So they put up the program for somebody else. And a gentleman named Bill Sandstrom took the program over. And that name is significant because he was the football coach at Pasadena City College. He commuted daily from Big Bear all the way down to Pasadena City College. And I don't know if anyone's familiar about that distance. Without traffic, it's 2.5 hours. It's
Wow.
the local ski resort up in the San Bernardino Mountains. So he was kind of semi-retired from coaching and was kind of riding out into the sunset for his retirement. And the athletic director said, hey, we've got this program. We need someone to coach it for another year so we can put up the job offer formally. And he raised his hand and said, I'll take it, and had never coached volleyball in his life before. But his counterpart at Long Beach City College, Coach Gregory, was also a football coach there, and they used to butt heads at football. And so Bill and him now butted heads in volleyball, which was kind of fun. And so I just kind of fell into it, and I was a starter in my second year as well. I got kind of recruited by a couple of different schools, and I was looking at a few other schools. USC, my family went to, and I thought maybe I could go there, but I would never play. I was not tall enough. I wasn't good enough. UC San Diego was a place I was looking at the time. They were Division III at the time.
Oh.
But I knew I would be in Mexico every other weekend surfing, and I probably wouldn't get much schoolwork done. Okay, I thought, well, maybe I'll go to Santa Barbara, but Isla Vista would have just swallowed me whole, and I probably wasn't going to play there either. And a girl I dated on the team at Pasadena went up to UC Santa Cruz to go play, and I kind of followed her, and I went up for a visit, and I love the place. Santa Cruz is one of the most beautiful cities in the country. The coach and I chatted a little bit, and he said, "Hey, we'd love to have you come up." And I chose to go to UC Santa Cruz, and that's kind of how I fell into playing. So yeah, that's my story about playing.
Right, and well, did you make the NCAA Division 1 or
No, Santa Cruz is Division III,
Division 3?
and we had kind of a hybrid Division I club Division III schedule. We had local area universities like Cal Berkeley and Fresno State and Sac State and a bunch of others, Chico State, things like that. They were all part of a collegiate club, Northern California Club League that we were a part of. And then we would play Stanford and UCLA and USC and things like that because we needed to play NCAA teams because we were D3. So that's kind of the scheduling. We were okay. I mean, we weren't beating Division I teams, but we're going 4-5 with them, and that was fun. And for being a tiny little school and a little hippie campus out in the middle of Santa Cruz, overlooking the ocean, we did pretty well.
The first time I heard about the UC Santa Cruz was in Pulp Fiction.
Oh yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. So after I graduated, I became an assistant coach and then became the head coach for both men's and the women's teams. And Quentin Tarantino's movie Pulp Fiction came out during that time, and in the movie, he's wearing a Banana Slugs shirt, which is
Vincent
awesome.
Vega is wearing that shirt.
Yeah. And then in the movie, the guy looks at him and goes, "Where did you just come from? A volleyball match or something?" And literally, I'm like, "What? That's awesome!" So on my recruiting trips, I would talk about that because apparently Quentin Tarantino's wife went to UC Santa Cruz. He either went there or she grew up there, one of the two. I think she went there. And they would go up there and stay at her house or whatever for a long time. And then I don't know, what happened after that, but that's how that reference came about, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah.
And well, which was your major in college? And well, when you started playing UC Santa Cruz, have you ever imagined that you will end up as a volleyball coach?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So my major was sociology, and loved my major. I was not very good at standardized tests, but I could write a 10-page paper in an hour and be fine. So sociology was perfect for me. And I kind of fell into coaching too. I mean, volleyball is it's one of those things where I didn't really know about it. I was on the fringe and it just kept bringing me in some form or fashion. And so when I graduated college, one of my fraternity brothers owned a local area realty company in Santa Cruz and asked if I was interested in being a realtor. And I said, well, I'll go give it a shot. Why not? I need to make money. And I just hated it. I was awful at it. I wasn't good at real estate. I didn't want to really do it. I just kind of did it because it made me a little bit of cash. And the coach that took over after I graduated was a guy named Ralph Smith, who played at Long Beach State way back in the day in the 80s, 70s and 80s, and was on the national team for a little bit, and asked if I was interested in being an assistant. And I still, to be honest with you, I took the position, not because it was a lot of money, but because I like to play still. And I was getting to play with the guys in the gym, and that was fun. And I get to be on the trips, and obviously, I'm coaching, but I didn't really understand any of it. And then he left in the fall of '99, which means the 2000 season he was the year of playing. And the AD at Santa Cruz said, "Do you want the job?" And I said, "I do," and I took it. And then that same season, the women's coach that had been there forever retired. they opened up the job. We went through the interview process of people, and the AD came to me and said, look, none of them really make sense. Do you want that job too? And I said, okay. It was more money, obviously. And now I'm the head coach for both Division III men's and women's teams at Santa Cruz. I have no idea what I'm doing. I have an assistant on the women's side who was a player, but it's not like you would think an assistant would be. It was kind of like she would show up to practice and matches, and that was about it. But obviously had somebody to bounce ideas off of. And that first year was really trial by fire. I didn't really have any idea what I was doing. I didn't know how to structure practices. I didn't know how to talk to people. I didn't know how to create a schedule. I didn't know anything. And, I got lucky. I had some people that I could talk to, but I took a clinic, a gold medal squared clinic the following summer, and my eyes were blown away with what I learned and what I saw and people that I met. Not because necessarily the gold medal squared is the be all end all of existence. I mean, they train fine, men's volleyball kind of overlaps with just a couple of different things, just about on everything. So, but I learned how to run drills and how to structure practices and what to look for in video. And Carl McGowan was the coach for that clinic, and just really gave me some good, keen insight. And then the following year, I went down to Pepperdine. Marv Dunphy kind of took me under his wing a little bit, and met a bunch of other coaches that would later on prove to be pretty beneficial for my job, and just all of a sudden fell in love with it. And I love teaching, and I always wanted a coach growing up that was kind of a mentor, but not just a volleyball mentor, a sport mentor. It's kind of a life mentor. And college is really, it's the most informative changes in your life going on. I mean, you're doing all kinds of things for the first time ever. You're away from home, and you got all these social pulls, and you got school, and you got maybe a job, and there's just all these things going on. And a young man or a young woman, they needed some guidance. And so I really started to fall in love with my classroom. My classroom was the gym, and I felt like I could make an impact. And it was at that moment, probably in 2001, 2002, where I decided this is what I want to do. And I just kind of follow my path.
Oh, it's great. And well, you spent 4 years in Santa Cruz.
I mean, listen, if you're going to spend 10 years of your life somewhere, it might as well be Santa Cruz, right? I worked at O'Neill Surf Shop for 4 or 5 years up there. And so I had these, and I was in a fraternity. So I had these 3 separate lives that I never crossbred them, right? So I had my fraternity life, which I loved immensely. I had my sport life, my volleyball life, which was fantastic. And then I have my surf shop life, where it was everything I did growing up. I always wanted to be in the surf industry. And now I'm working at the oldest wetsuit company, surf shop in the world. And I'm in the inner circle. And so it's like I had all these things that, I wanted to get away from that for a while. I can go focus on this. And when I wanted to get rid of that and go focus up here, I could be there. And I never wanted to intermix them. I wanted them to be separate. It was just a fantastic place to be. I would still live in Santa Cruz to this day, and coach there if they paid a living wage. And the coach that's there now was a gentleman, Eric Paul, I believe was Eric. Yeah. He's there now as a head coach. I apologize, bud, if I messed up your name. I'm kind of a little bit of a long day, but he's now full-time. He's got benefits. They play in a bigger gym. And I remember when he told me all this a couple of years ago, I was like, dude, I'm so stoked for you, because that program needed a little bit of support. And now all of a sudden with that support that they're getting, they're starting to, now they were in the finals a couple of years ago, and they're getting better recruits. And so I'm just super, super stoked, and I'm a proud alum, and could not be happier for them.
It's great. And then you moved to Ohio, to
No.
whole different world.
No,
Idaho, sorry.
Idaho, yeah. No, I took a job at Idaho State for a year. It just wasn't a good fit. It was a strange juxtaposition between Santa Cruz and Idaho. And so after that year, I came back down to Irvine and I got my master's degree. I was coaching at Irvine Valley College with a guy named Tom Pestalacy, whom I met originally at Stanford camp, but also at Pepperdine camp. And he was a guy that when I came back to town, I emailed and I said, hey, I'm in town. Would you need an assistant or a volunteer? And he said, come on in. We'd love to have you. So I was with Pesto for, 4 or 5 years. We won 2 state titles on the men's team, which was awesome. Pesto is one of my favorite people in the whole world. And then while I was doing all that, I was coaching club down there, boys club. I coached at UC Irvine women's team for a year. And then in 2005, I got brought on to USA Volleyball. They moved the men's national team down to Anaheim. And I emailed Hugh and said, hey, I'm in town. Do you need a coach? And he said, love to have you come on in. Let's see how it goes. And the first couple of weeks, you're schlepping balls and you're wiping the floor, you're doing whatever. But over the next couple of months, they would travel and he would let me run practices and would let me create the drills and do all that stuff. And the following year, which was 2006, he hired me as an assistant coach, which, now you're in the gym every day. There's a purpose, there's dedication, and getting to travel around the world at times and represent the USA and doing it with that crew. And then obviously winning the gold medal in 2008 was one of the most amazing things ever. And I was not in Beijing. I was the coach that stayed back in Anaheim and trained the next 12 guys during the Olympics. So in case somebody went down, there was an alternate ready to fly out and be ready to go. So it was a fantastic ride. So I did all that when I was back down in Irvine, and then Penn State came along.
Wait a minute. So, I think that's great. Well, I have been in Anaheim three or four times. As I told you, I every time USA Volleyball came to Mexico for a Pan Am Cup, I asked to be their translator or guide. I know that I have known there great people like Ron Larson 4 years ago, like
Yep.
Sean Rooney, like Alan Vince, like Sean Patchell, last year Milan Sarkovic and David Hunt in Colima. So one of the things that I really like of USA Volleyball is that they are not stuck with just one guy. I mean, everybody knows that John Spro is the head coach for men's and coach for women, but they are rotating a lot of people in I think in a way of constant learning. We have to give the chance to another coaches to be part of these, and I think that's a great thing.
It is, especially for college coaches. So, women's volleyball, there's over 1,000 Division I through Division III schools across the country. And the pipeline to get involved with USA Volleyball and be able to become a youth national coach, a junior national coach, and potentially with the national team, man, there's a lot of people trying to get in that. And it's such a tight bottleneck at the end. And I'm sure a lot of coaches get frustrated that, they're always going to be just an A3 coach at with 40 kids in the middle of nowhere, Ohio, and never get a real shot at being a coach on a national team. On the men's side, however, there's fewer people trying to get into the same bottle. And luckily, when I had my time with Hugh McCutcheon and the national team, so I was with them for 4 years. So that already propelled my name into some discussion about could we get him to do some other things. It wasn't necessarily like, oh, he was with the national team, so we're just going to give him the job. It was, hey, you get to now have opportunities to be moving up the line. Then when I went to Penn State, that was the real catalyst for me to become an assistant. So they wanted Division I head coaches or coaches, Division I coaches to be on the national team staff. It just what they were talking about, what they wanted. And it was, 2010, I think, around there, 10 or 11. Pete Hansen, who was at Ohio State, was the head coach for I think it was 12 actually, was the head coach for the junior national team. And I was talking to him at one point and I said, you know what? I'd love to be involved with the junior national team if possible. So if you're looking for an assistant, I'd like to throw my name in the hat. And Pete said, I'd love to have you. And I guess when he went to USA, the story is they say, well, Jay's not done enough in the pipeline. We have other guys that we'd like you to look at. And Pete kind of stuck his neck out for me and said, hey, this is my staff. I pick who I want. Jay's the guy that I want. So you either hire him or, I don't want to work the team. And don't necessarily know if that would have really came to the head like that. But it was nice that he stuck his neck out for me. And so I got to be a part of that staff. And then I got invited back the next year to be an assistant. And that was with Dan Friend and Sam Schweisky. And then the following year, they gave me the team. And I had Jonah Carson and Matt McCarthy as my assistants. And it was a fantastic ride. So I've been with USA Volleyball for 10, 11 years at the time. And, got to travel the world and coach high-level volleyball and meet a lot of fantastic people around the world and, get to represent putting USA on my back. And that was pretty fun. So, I wish we had gold medals and we won some tournaments and we, had a lot of fun and a lot of laughs. And that's kind of the name of the game. And now you're right. Now somebody else gets a chance to do that. And I think what that does is it builds the program from the ground up, right? So the coach sees what the next level is like, and then he brings all that stuff back into his gym. The guys that play on the team that now, they're 18, 19 years old and 20 years old, and they get to see what, Russia's doing and what Brazil is doing and what Italy's doing and all these other places. And then they get to bring that back into their gyms. So all it's really doing is raising everybody's level of play. The thing is that in youth volleyball, USA is pretty competitive around the world because, the guys are, but you get to the junior level, the 19, 20-year-old kids. I mean, those guys internationally are already playing on pro teams and making a lot of money.
I remember perfectly, Jay, that, for example, Micah Christensen, when they won the bronze medal in Rio, he has never played one pro game.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. I coached him a little bit on the junior team, and I remember Spara poached him from us. We had a pretty darn good team. We were going to the Worlds in Turkey, and we went to go train in Anaheim, and John came over and poached him from us, literally in the middle of a practice, because, no, he's with me. And we were like, well, that sucked. And so, but yeah, I mean, those guys, it's a big jump. And I know that we've had a little success over the years. I know John Hawks took a team down to Brazil, I think it was, and they got fourth, but that was Taylor Crabb and Taylor Sander and just a phenomenal team. But I mean, it's rare that a USA team gets in the top 10 in the international world games at that age level. It's just so tough to do. But again, they bring that stuff back into their gyms. And now those guys are a little bit more mature and they're able to handle that level a little bit better. And they just bring everybody else up around them. And the men's senior team, the pipeline really is the college programs. All of us college coaches around the country, we are all training relatively the same thing. Maybe there's a little tweak in our defense, or maybe there's a little tweak in, some nomenclature or verbiage that we use. But the reality is that we all train the same way. And, over time, it used to be, you needed 6 years or so outside of college to play at a high level in the international game in order to be on the national team and make some money playing a pro contract. Now these guys are getting out, they're making $250,000 a year, some of them, and they're already ready to go. And the only people you can really credit that is the college coach. The college coaches are doing a fantastic job of training these guys. And, we're bigger and we're stronger and we're faster and we're competing now at a high level. And so, kudos to all those guys out there that are doing the work.
Yeah, and one of the most important things is that what you say, all of you train the same way. with one focus in the national team. I remember also very well when I first met Taylor Sander in the Pan Am Cup here in Mexico City in 2013, with the B or the C team. And the next year, in the next World League of 14, he was named MVP. So it's amazing, Well, the first time I saw Taylor Sander, he's a great jumper, and I thought, well, this guy, he has a great future. But the next 1 year, he was named MVP of World League.
Yeah, special player. Taylor was Taylor was in a club. He played at the level, I think, just below my age group 1 year, and the coach and I traded for a night, and so I got to coach his team for a little bit. And I mean, you're looking at him as a 16, 17-year-old, and you're just like, this kid's ridiculous. And sure enough, I mean, obviously his accolades have been, numerous to this day. But Taylor's a very special athlete, a very gifted young man. So.
Oh yeah, well, a lot. I have heard a lot of people that in that kind of teams of the Pan Am Cup team says, "Hey, this is not the A team of USA. Why they are not sending the A team, just the B or the C team?" Well, because of your pipeline, And it's pretty amazing that one time I went to Anaheim, there were 40 or 50 guys training in the same court. I mean, you have a bunch of players training the same way, the same drills over and over. So that's the reason you can have the World University Games, the junior, the youth, or the A, B, and the C teams. That's great. Considering also that you have no pro league yet, and that I think that's a great accomplishment. The 3 gold medals you have.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point. We have tried so many times to start a pro league out here, and it's been hit or miss. There's been a handful of them over the years that have been around for a year or two or three, and it just, for whatever reason, America never bought into volleyball. I don't know why, because around the world, it's the second most popular sport, behind soccer. You go anywhere around the world, there's a pro league, and it's at all levels. I mean, you're going from D3 level of play in some places all the way up to world class national team levels. And when people watch volleyball for the first time, and we bring people from my community where I live, we have a bunch of friends of ours that will come to a match occasionally, and we'll bring new people every year. And the same thing comes out of their mouth every time. They go, "I'm coming to every match. This was the most fun I've ever seen at a sporting event. It was so fast and it was so powerful. These guys are so tall and they jump really high and they hit the ball really hard. And it's a fun sport to watch. And when you catch it at a barbecue picnic level, it's a joke, right? That's what everybody assumes volleyball is. But when you see it done at the highest levels, the speed and the grace and the power in the game, oh, it's absolutely fantastic. So yeah, without a pro league, for us to be this successful, it just, again, the college coaches have done a great job preparing these kids. And then obviously they get in the USA gym and they're given opportunities, and we're finding them opportunities overseas to go play in these leagues, and they're flourishing, and we're super happy for them.
Yeah, and the other thing that it's amazing to me is that every semester USA Volley will have 600, 700 international transfers going to play to. Not everybody goes to Italy or to Russia, but they go to play Sweden, Denmark, Great Britain, Spain, of course. I think it's part of the education of the kid, right? Of the player. They say, "Hey, I have spent 4 years in college. Let's go overseas, play overseas 2 or 3 years, get some international experience, and probably then I can come back to the USA for a real job, right?" And that's I think that's amazing. We in Mexico have playing overseas, I think 6 or 7 players right now. So
Yeah,
huge difference.
but good players nonetheless. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So, I coached Aaron Russell when he was at Penn State for 4 years, and obviously Aaron's a major money maker. He makes a ton of cash every year, rightfully so.
Yeah.
But he's not the norm. There are a lot of guys that I've coached that have gone overseas and played, and maybe they're making $1,000 a month, and they're living in an apartment with 4 other guys, and they have taxi fare coupons that they get to use, or they share a car with everybody else in the place. They play in front of like 50 people at a small little gym. It's not high level.
Yeah, but they are playing overseas. They are getting some other experience for life.
And they're gaining world experience. They're gaining knowledge and living in living education, living abroad is a phenomenal way to go through life, especially when you're young and you don't have any overhead. Like, why not do it then? And those guys, if they do it right and they're good players, they'll do well in their league, and then an agent will see them and bounce them up. And so the following year, maybe they go to another level up, and then the following year they go another level up, and then finally they find a level where they can be successful, but they're not the best player in the gym anymore, and then they can stay there for a while, and they can make some money, and they can become a journeyman, so to speak. And maybe they're making 40 or 50 grand a year for playing 6 months or 7 months, and that's kind of fun. And then they come home, they play on the beach circuit, they go to the AVP, or maybe they play with the national team and train for a little bit and do some tours around the world and on the Pan Am Cup or whatever. So you have this opportunity when you're young and you're good to be able to go and kind of parlay that for a little bit before you have to get involved with the real world. Because listen, the real world ain't that fun.
Yeah, of course. And what happened next? You moved from you're a West Coast guy, and you moved to the East Coast. How was that change? Well, Penn State is a big program. Mark Pavlik was here in the show 3 months ago, I think. Great program. Probably you remember two Mexicans, Carlos Guerra and Ivan Contreras,
Yep.
great guys in Penn State.
It's funny. I saw Ivan Contreras in Turkey when I was out there for a job interview. I was actually flying out there.
Yeah, he played 1 year in Turkey.
Yeah, and I remember looking at him, I was like, Penn State. He was all stoked. He's a good guy. Yeah, I was interviewing at Long Beach State and at Penn State at the same time. And Long Beach went with another guy, and obviously Penn State went with me. And my wife at the time was like, "Sweet, when are we going?" And she was all excited to try something new. And that's the real rubber meeting the road, right? If my wife wasn't ready. And she wasn't my wife at the time. She told me, it goes, if you're taking this job, like, you got to put a ring on it. Like, I'm not moving out there as a girlfriend. And I was like, yeah, I get it. So, and we were already headed that direction. It wasn't like I was forced into this whole thing. But to have somebody who was willing to pick up their life and move across the country in the middle of nowhere. I mean, State College is a tiny little cow town in the middle of central Pennsylvania. My wife's a city girl, she's a city mouse, so to speak. And, she all of a sudden became a country mouse, and it took her some time to adjust. But I told her when I took that job, I said, look, this job is for me. And I appreciate you picking up and moving around the country for me to have that opportunity. The next job I take will be for you. And sure enough, after being at Penn State for 5 or 6 years, the Mason job opened up, and I was interviewing at Utah, and I was interviewing at Illinois. I was interviewing at Grand Canyon. They wanted to offer me the job. And Mason just made the most sense on so many different levels. And Stephanie was given a major promotion to move to the DC area. And it just made sense on so many levels. And obviously we parlayed it to be a pretty good way of life. So we're pretty happy out here.
That's great. It's very close, right? George Mason to DC?
Yeah, about 10 miles. It's not far. Literally, we're a suburb of DC. So it's literally right there in our backyard.
And how was... Sorry?
Not a lot of people know that. When they see Virginia and they think, oh, we're just some little, podunk town in the middle of Virginia. We're literally in Northern Virginia, right next door to DC. So people don't understand that. It's like the equivalent of being in Santa Monica, but you're in LA. And
Yeah.
You're right there. So.
And what was the big picture when you arrived to George Mason? I mean, new school, new town. You are the head coach. How was the program at that time? How is the program now?
So Fred Chow, who is currently the head coach at Old Dominion University with the women's team, he started that program, got the job. But when he when he was here at Mason, he was a coach for 20 years, 21 years, something like that. And there was an AD at the time that was not exactly very supportive of any sport besides men's basketball. And Fred always felt like he was kind of fighting an uphill battle. And he had a lot of good players over the years that stood out. Hudson Bates was a guy that played. He played on the national team for a little bit, and he had a lot of guys that could have been anywhere in the country but chose to come to Mason. But it just never seemed to click. It never seemed to be, a championship caliber program for whatever reason. I know his scholarship money wasn't full, and his budget was really minimal. I mean, it was just so many things that Fred just never felt like he got a fair shake at. And so his wife got pregnant, and all of a sudden he's like, "Hey, I got a family now. I gotta make ends meet. I can't do it here with the money they're paying me now." So he left. And when I was at Penn State, we would have alumni weekends, and Ron Shaka, who is my sport administrator, the associate AD at Mason, he's an alumni of the men's volleyball program at Penn State. So he came one weekend. This is in the very beginning, and the running joke, but the actual true story, we were crossing each other in the bathroom, and I looked at him and I said, "Hey, Ron, I know Fred's still the head coach. I'm not trying to get anybody fired, but should that job open up, I would be interested in that job, at least interviewing." And he kind of smiled and goes, "Yeah, sure, whatever." And we moved about our business. Sure enough, 5 years later or 6 years later, the job opens up, and Ron gives me a call, and I went on my interview weekend. And one of the things I told Ron is that I'm not just trying to be a head coach. Like, I want to win championships. I want to win conference championships. I want to push for a national title every 5, 6, 7 years if I can. And I'm not going to be able to do it if the amount of support is going to remain at the level it is now. And if that is the case, then please don't hire me. I don't want the job. But if it's going to change, if we're going to get 4.5 scholarships, if we're going to be able to travel by bus all the time, if we're going to be able to fly across the country once a year, if we're going to have a national schedule, and I can recruit with money instead of recruiting with just my school, then I think this place could be a sleeping giant. I think it could be. And I said, this place reminds me of what UC Irvine and what Loyola was like before they took off. This was one of those places. And sure enough, Ron said, "I think we can make that work." And he ended up hiring me. And it was lucky because I was getting an offer from Grand Canyon pretty much the same week. And Ron, just sold me on the place. And it was the best move for me and best move for my wife. And we've been really happy here. I love the university. It's a top-notch level education. This is one of the best universities in the country. The campus is gorgeous. We're obviously right next door to DC, so you have access to anything you want. If you're looking for sporting events and concerts and foodstuffs, and obviously it's a metropolis city with the world's government located right there. Access to internships, all those things you can think of. Our facilities are great. The men's volleyball gym we play in, and it holds 1,600 people. It's perfect. Great lighting, great flooring, and just all around, it's been just a fantastic move, and I could not be happier.
Right, it sounds great. I want to go to George Mason to visit you.
We got a spot for you. Come on.
You sell. I think it was a big hit for you and for the school that the Final Four can make it this year. I hope that in 23 you can make it. But I think that's a signal that volleyball has been growing in George Mason, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we're a sport that on campus we're known as a national powerhouse of sorts. We're a nationally ranked team. We get international athletes, and we play on a national stage, and we're beating teams like Pepperdine and beating teams like USC. And when you're a mid-major and you don't have a big name and you can do those things, people take notice. It's not the norm yet, but I know someday we're going to be at that level. And we've got great kids in the gym now, and really phenomenal freshman class that came in this year that is raised the level of the gym tremendously. And the guys that came back, they've worked real hard, and our recruiting is 2 years out. We're already just about done with our 22 class and moving on to 23s. And, that's a sign of a program that is building and growing the right ways. And we're doing it the right ways, and building a family and building a culture that we can be proud of, and I've always wanted the alumni to be able to look back on this and say, that's my program, and be proud of it, wear your Mason shirt with some pride. And so, we keep doing those things, and we keep, hitting the pavement and coming into the gym every day, trying to get better and doing all those things right. I like our chances in the future. But, in the reality and the grand scheme of things, Alejandro, my buddy Tom Pestalacci and I used to say this all the time: when anything great would happen or anything bad would happen to us, we'd say there were 900 million people in China that couldn't care less about what we do, and it's the absolute truth. We're a small little bubble, but we like to think that our bubble's pretty cool, and we have a lot of great people that are in it.
That sounds great. I wish you really the best for George Mason and your program, Jay. Hope to see you next year in one game over there. Here is Peter Powell Cannon says, skateboarding. Did you prefer vertical or street skating?
Oh, great question, Peter. I preferred vert. I liked half pipes, but I was not very good at it. I was a much better surfer than I was a skater, but I liked skating pools and I liked skating half pipes. I was not very good at street. I couldn't ollie that well. And I would hurt myself a lot when I was trying to do it on the street. So that's a good question.
Do you do in these days some skateboard? No anymore.
No, not as much as I'd like. I'll tool around the neighborhood a little bit. I actually, what I want? I want one of those motorized skateboards. And we have this tremendous street in our community. It's this big, wide, flat kind of street, and I want to just cruise on it with a motorized skateboard, the electric ones. But that's a toy that I'll probably hurt myself with, and then I won't be able to coach anymore. So I should probably stick to soft things like surfing.
All right, but you do surf when you go to Southern California or Rocky Point.
I do. There's no surf in Rocky Point, unfortunately. It's in the top of the Sea of Cortez.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But when I go home in California for the holidays or to visit or recruit, I do try to get in the water as often as I can. And right down the road here in Virginia Beach, about 3.5 hours away, I'll go surf down there. And we have the Outer Banks, which is about 4.5 hours away. And some of the best surf on the East Coast is out here at the Outer Banks. But, I'm not as adept as I used to be. The surfers in the crowd will understand. I just kind of get out there and flounder around a little bit and, paddle and act like I know what I'm doing. But the reality, and I catch a few waves and I'll have some fun. But the reality is I'm nowhere near as good as I used to be because I don't do it every day anymore. But I sure do love getting in the water and getting wet and having a good time. It brings a smile to my face.
Hey, Jay, how difficult is to develop a men's volleyball program in the East Coast? I think I can imagine it's harder than in the West Coast.
Well, if you look at the landscape, like Pennsylvania actually has the oldest sanctioned high school boys volleyball league in the country.
Oh, really?
That's Pennsylvania. There's great volleyball out here. Pennsylvania, New York, Virginia, Florida, up in the upper Pennsylvania areas in Erie. There's great volleyball out here. The challenge is it was kind of hit or miss in recent years. So, 20 years ago, there might be a handful of guys that were really good out here. And back then, the goal was to go play on the West Coast. So if you were really good, a couple of them would go to Penn State, but they would say, I want to play against all the West Coast teams because that's where the championships are. So everybody would try to go out west. And all of a sudden, in 94, who's the first team to win besides a California team is
Penn State.
Right.
With Ivan Contreras, the first non-Californian MVP.
Exactly. And then it was back to California and West Coast for a number of years. And then all of a sudden, 2008, Penn State.
Yeah, with Matt Anderson from New York.
Right. Then you had 2011, you had Ohio State. And then you had Loyola win twice, and Ohio
Luis.
State win twice. Yeah, 3. And so you're starting to notice the shift was moving, not necessarily from California out to the Midwest and the East Coast. And what happened was players started to realize I could either be a walk-on at UCLA and get no money and hope I made a spot on the team, or I could go to a Loyola or a Lewis or Ohio State or Penn State or anywhere else you can think of, and maybe I'm still not getting any money, but I'm fighting and I have a better shot because I'm not fighting all the alpha males, so to speak, right? These are all the big fish who are in California. But what happened from there was then their gyms started to get really, really good because more players were coming and their scholarship money was being increased and their vision was increasing and their scope was increasing. So when you saw the Lewises and Loyolas and Penn States of the world, they'd have some good players here and there, but they weren't across the board the best programs like the California teams, like the UCLA. Now they are. They've got a dozen guys in those gyms that can start at any school in the country because they're that good and because the support is that good. And so now these kids are starting to look and go, I don't have to go out there in order to play good volleyball. I can go out here and I can get an education. My parents can be close. They can come up and watch me play. I could still, be a contributor to a good team. I can get a great education. So that stuff is all kind of going by the wayside. Yeah, there's still the occasional kid that in the Midwest that goes, I've always wanted to go to USC or UCLA, but it's not as prevalent as it used to be. And those coaches are starting to come out east a lot more often than they used to. They would come out occasionally, but they are out here all the time now because they know that they're trying to fight for these fish that we're getting in our gyms that are helping us beat those teams. And so that's all of a sudden where things are starting to shift a little bit.
And that's great for East Coast volleyball and USA volleyball.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's boring, and I say this with all due respect. It's boring when UCLA wins 19 out of 20 times. It's not very fun to watch. And when do you start to see those changes start to happen? And it's in the early 2000s. That's when it starts. I think the wheels start to wobble a little bit.
Yeah, right. Jay, which people can you say that have been your greatest mentors or influencers in your volleyball career?
That Alejandro. That's one of my most favorite questions. I have to say, without a doubt, my first coach of influence was Lori Jepson at Pasadena City College. She didn't know me from Adam. I did not have a volleyball pedigree. I was not a very good player, but she took me under her wing and gave me a shot. And my second year there at the junior college, she let me be an assistant coach with the women's team. And I got my first taste of coaching at a high level, or at least a higher level. And I could not be more thankful. And so she really was the first one that gave me a shot. Um, Tom Pestalacy is probably my next mentor because he taught me that it can be fun to be a coach. It doesn't have to be a grind. It doesn't have to be 12 hours a day of killing yourself and the kids and trying to win championships. You can have fun while you do it. And I had some of my fondest memories were working with Pesto. Marv Dunphy is one of my mentors that I respect deeply. He gave me chances when I didn't deserve them, and really, I'll never forget. I was in a car with him once, and we're driving back from some event that we were at, and he said, you're one of the good young coaches. I want to help you succeed. Put my name on your resume and I'll help you get to a job. And he didn't have to do that. I didn't play for Marv. I certainly wasn't a terrific representative of, my career coming up. I made a lot of dumb mistakes and stupid errors that most people would say, well, he's done for. That's a dumb thing to do and you're out. And Marv took me back and said, I'm gonna help you get there. And so I could not be more thankful to him for those opportunities. Hugh McCutcheon, because obviously the national team is the national team,
Yeah.
but Hugh and I became good friends, and Hugh also helped me get jobs, and Hugh also taught me a lot about how to be a coach. I learned how to run practices and drills from him specifically. He was a master at those things. And just the way that he communicated, the way that he ran them, the way that he structured them. You know, one of the Ryan Millar said it best once, and I echo it every chance I get. Hugh was an absolute wizard at knowing when to stop a drill, of knowing when the diminishing law return of investment, where you're not getting anything more out of the guys, you're just pushing them to push them. He was a master at recognizing that moment and saying, that's it. We don't need to do this anymore, and would stop practice and we'd be done for the day. And he would explain to the captains, to the senior guys, hey, this is what I saw, and this is where we need to be. And we weren't there today, but know that tomorrow we need to get there. We cannot have another day like this. And it was just fantastic to hear the tonation and the verbiage and the way that he communicated with those guys. And last but not least, Mark Pavlik was, he gave me a chance to go to a storied and historically strong traditional program. And I always say to people, I don't necessarily think I learned how to be a better coach from him. I think we were pretty similar in the things that we did, but boy, did I learn how to run a program from top to bottom from him. He was the absolute best coach I've ever seen run a program, from the players, from the parents, from the boosters, from the administration, to how he set things up schedule wise, and how he, ran his staff. And he was fantastic, top notch in my book. And I could not be more grateful for him. And when I was interviewing, when I flew out there, the first words out of his mouth were, "Welcome to Happy Valley. If you're looking to take over my job, you're going to be here for quite a while, because I'm not quitting anytime soon. I'm not retired." And that kind of set the tone. But he, when I was when we were in that interview process, he said, "How many years do you think you can give us?" And I said, "I'll be honest with you. I want to see a full class come in from recruiting to leaving, to graduating, moving on. And at that point, I'll reassess and I'll go year by year and kind of go from there. Is that fair?" And he said, "Absolutely, that's fair. We could do that." So I saw the first class go through, and then I stayed on for another year and a half. And during that year and a half, I was getting interviews. And in fact, we flew out to California to play some matches, and we had a day off in between two matches. And I flew up to Utah for an interview and stayed there all day in Utah, then flew back down to LA and coached again the next night with my guys at Penn State. And Pab was 100% supportive. And he always told me, "Look, I know you're going to go someday, and I'm okay with that. I want to help you get there. And just know you will always have a job until you have another job." And to have that stress be taken off my shoulders, to have your boss look at you and say, "I know you're leaving, but I'm going to help you along the way, and don't worry about not having a job, and don't worry about me finding out being upset." Man, that is such class, and it's what people know Pav to be, a classy guy. Never a doubt in my mind. One of my most favorite people in the entire world. So those are the people.
Oh,
That's a great
great.
question, Alessandro.
No, great names. Well, Mark Pavlik, as I told you, was here 3 months ago. I think it's amazing, very funny guy. It was an amazing talk with Pav. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
Jay, what do you think what can you say about the main differences between the USA volleyball school and the international volleyball? In which parts are you weak? In which parts are you strong?
Yeah. I think, USA does a few things pretty well. We're a systematic type program. We have definite ways of how we want things to be done and trained. But I think where the international game kind of surpasses us, especially the younger levels. We get better, obviously, as we get older because we're playing at the international level. We see it, so we know what it looks like. But when you're young, you don't understand it. There's a few of them I think that we do. One, their ability to hit at a high level. We call it the international swing in a lot of the gyms. It's literally it's 1 versus 6, and I've got one opportunity to get this point. If they get it, they're going to shove it down our throats. Chances, and I got to make sure I get this. So that high flat swing, finding the edges of the block and using it to your advantage. The international guys see that at such a young age that they understand how it works. Our guys, and when I say our guys, I mean young kids in America when they grow up. What do they want to hit? Straight down every time. They want it in warm-ups. They're trying to bang the ball as hard as they can, and it doesn't work at the international game. And I
Yes,
remember,
of course.
yeah, it's not good for your business, so to speak. And I remember in the national training team, we would have warm-ups, and obviously we would have hitting lines for a couple of minutes just to kind of get our arms warm. And everybody would go in who was watching, like spectators and visitors, and they would always sit and watch for the hitting warm-ups because they would think, oh, this is going to be fantastic. And our guys never hit down balls until the last ball before they went to go get water. They would hit high flat shots that were out of bounds. They would hit, cut shots and roll shots and all these different things because they're practicing what they're going to be doing in a game. And then all of a sudden, the last ball before they go get water, before the 6-on-6 stuff would start, they get a 2-ball set in the middle. They bang one down just to do it. It was not that big of a deal. You go to the junior high gyms and high school gyms, and everything is about how hard you can hit the ball down and how bouncy you can make it. Still happens in college. Don't ask me why. It just is what it is. The next thing I think that the international game does well is their serving and passing is at a much higher level than ours. Their servers really are good at pinpointing spots rather than people. And it puts a lot of pressure on the passers. They also have a variety of different serves. And it's one of the things we try to do in our gym is replicate many different serves. Your service routine, your toss and your footwork and your arms, that's all the same. It doesn't change. But if you can move somewhere in the back line, if you could throw a choppy in there, if you could throw a hybrid in there, a reverse hybrid, do all these different things, now the passers never get into a rhythm. And that's kind of what I see international teams do. And they have big bombers. Don't get me wrong. There's guys bringing 70-mile-an-hour plus serves. That is just not seen in the States until a higher level. And the last thing is defense. Their unwillingness to let a ball hit the floor without somebody scrapping and getting just a finger on it to get it up in the air, or the ability to pancake. Like the level of how many people can pancake at the international game and get it up so somebody can make a set or somebody can, hit a ball over, whatever. It's unreal. And it is a level of defense that we just don't have in the States. We don't. I remember telling the guys this, in the States, if we're playing in the game and I make an error or I don't make a dig that I should, or whatever the case is, the reality is my girlfriend's still going to love me. I'm still going to get likes on my social media. My parents are still going to tell me they love me. I'm still going to get to go to a keg party down the street. Like, they have all these things that feed them this false sense of security. Like, I'm still a great person. Doesn't mean they're bad kids because they don't make the dig, but it just means that their lives are not quite so impacted by little mistakes and little errors. But when you look at the international game, and especially kids in the younger level, when you don't make the dig, when you don't make the kill, when you don't make the serve, your coach fires you. They look at you and go, you can't handle this game. And there's 30 guys just like you that are waiting for a shot to take your spot. So if you don't continue to work and making those digs in the future, you're out. Next guy's in, and he's now making money. So you're taking money off the table.
Yeah, you can ask that to the Cubans, to the Italians, to the Bulgarians, to the Argentinians.
Exactly. They are fighting for their lives.
That's right. That's right.
They have to make those digs. And so when you show international games and in video rooms and scouting reports and team talks, and you go, look at the way that they are getting these balls up. Look at the way they're throwing their bodies around the gym just to make a dig, to free ball a ball back over. and I say it all the time. When you watch tennis and you see that one guy running back and forth on the baseline and just scratching to put a ball back up in this big lob, and the guy on the other side bombs another one, and he's running on the other side, and he just makes a scratching dig to get the ball back over. The guy bombs another one. You're sending a message to the other side. You got to be better. You got to be better than what you just hit me with. You have to put it sharper. You have to hit it harder. You got to hit it flatter into the deep corner. You've got to hit it wider than you hit it before. And what happens? Inevitably, they're going to make a mistake. And when they make the mistake, who's really winning the momentum battle at that point? You just got done tiring your butt out, running these things to make that guy miss 1 point. But that 1 point will stick in that guy's mind for the next 3, 4, 5 points, and that's where the momentum's changed. And so,
I think that well explains, that very well explains all that I say, that volleyball is not just about physical; it's a lot of mental.
oh yeah, this game is all it's all about momentum. And if you can't, Karch talked about it, I'm sure, on your show. If you can't let go of the last play where you made an error and focus on the next play at hand, you're already done. That's you're going to take 2 or 3 points to recover, and by that time of the international game, they've already passed you. And the international game is literally the team that makes the least amount of mistakes is going to win. Every team's going to make mistakes. That's not an issue. But when you find somebody who is a weak spot mentally and they make a hitting error and they can't get out of their own way, and you can see it in their eyes, you can see it in their body language, they'll focus on that person. They'll serve him the next ball. They'll put blocks in front of him on purpose just to get into his brain. And you've seen guys, you've seen it at the games that you've coached. They'll literally be in a phone booth. They can't get out of there, and 3 points get yanked out of the game, and the next guy's in. You've already won. You've already taken the match because you demoralized a guy who can't get out of his own brain, can't get out of his own way.
And I think, well, I for the last 20 years, I think that you explained right now is a factor that the Cuban team doesn't is the greatest team in the world, because they are big physical, but mentally they are not so strong.
Our scouting reports, when I was the head coach of the junior team, we were playing Cuba in the Norseca finals in Canada, and Cuba was heavily favored, and they had senior team guys playing on their junior team because they were young kids of age, right? And they crushed teams to get in there, and then all of a sudden we beat Canada, we get in there, and we're playing against Cuba. And this is the team that's Josh Tuaniga, Scott Static, Kyle Insing, God, who else do we have? Micah Ma'a. Like, we had all kinds of guys on the team. It was a dumb team. And literally, in our scouting report, one of the frames that we talked about was, don't wake the sleeping dogs. They're going to bang balls straight down. They're going to chatter with you through the net. They're going to bang their chest and a big swing and a big block. That's their bravado, right? That's their culture.
Yeah, that's so Cuban.
Yeah, but wait for the one play, because it will happen every match where one guy doesn't do his job. And then immediately there's 5 guys that look at him and be like, blah, blah, blah. They start yelling at him and barking. And if that guy barks back, you just let it go. You move back and you go, hey, we're just playing volleyball. And hopefully you can capitalize on that little mistake, because then they start barking even louder, and all of a sudden they're yelling at each other like, and you're like, that's it, game over. And we beat Cuba in 3 straight, because all they wanted to do, they wanted to bang balls straight down, but they didn't want to play the game the rest of the way. And, the volleyball USA, we kind of try to make you play the game a little bit more occasionally. And Cuba couldn't play that with us. And they were barking at each other. And we ended up getting the gold medal and getting the bid to go to the Worlds. And they acted like somebody came and took their girlfriend from their party. Like, it was unbelievable, that crying and tears and just anger at each other. And it was fantastic to be a part of.
And that's probably a thing you can do with teams like Bulgaria, like Iran, like Argentina. They are probably not so strong in the physical way, but they are mentally very, very strong.
Oh, Russia.
Russia
was one of those teams where you could not rattle them. And they almost never got fired up. It was almost strange playing them because they would hit balls and they would get blocks, and they kind of raise their hands a little bit, but it was literally a job to them. And you couldn't, you never wanted to do this through the net because they would look at me like, what are you doing? Like, I'm just playing my game here. You're barking up the wrong tree, little doggy. And we couldn't handle that. It was like hitting a brick wall. They were never breaking. They were never out of sorts. And you're right, Italy, very passionate, but their passion kind of led them. Puerto Rico is one of those teams as well. Puerto Rico, when they're playing with heart and passion, man, are they fun to watch. And we have a few of them on our team at Mason over the years, and obviously, I coached a bunch of them when I was at Penn State, and when they're bored, you can beat them all day long. But as soon as you bark a little bit up through the net, all of a sudden they go, oh, now you want to play for something, and bang, 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 they just get at you. And it's fun as heck to be a part of.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's pretty amazing talking about volleyball with you, Jay. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. I will ask you a question. We are close to the time. I will make you a question that I make to all of you American people, players, coach, etc. But in your case, it's special. Which real Mexican food do you like the most? Real Mexican food.
Real Mexican food. All right. So I've got a few, and I will.
Hey, remember, you are the pro food taster.
I am, and I've got this body by Adonis to prove it. I may have gained a couple of pounds over the years. All right, chili relleno burritos.
Ooh, yeah, right.
And I'm talking straight, just cheese in the chili relleno, and then a bean and cheese burrito wrapped in a. Oh my! One of my favorite things in the world. Secondly, birria is one of my
Birria. Oh
favorite.
yeah.
Oh my God! And my wife makes the most amazing birria ever. Chile Colorado is one of my favorites, and so we make that an awful lot. Menudo, I can't get enough menudo in my body. Those are one of my favorites. Yeah, those are my favorites for sure.
Right, but have you ever tasted birria in Guadalajara, Jalisco, best in the world?
I have because I coached on the Pan Am Games team in
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
12 down there in Guadalajara, and I did have some down there. And you're right, it was fantastic. And I had what was it called? Chiladas.
Enchiladas.
No, not enchiladas. Chiladas. The
Enchiladas.
beer,
Chelada, yeah.
chilada. Yeah. So it's beer and
Beer with sauce,
sauce
salt,
and clamato.
clamato, yeah.
Oh, a little salt on the rim. Oh my God, that is so good.
Where? In Rocky Point or in where?
No, that was in Guadalajara. We had
Guadalajara.
like 4 in the morning. We were out doing something. We were watching Lucha Libre. We had State Department guys that took the staff to go watch live Lucha Libre wrestling in the middle of Guadalajara, and then afterwards took us to some bar and grill restaurant, and we had chiladas until 4 in the morning. It was a fantastic experience.
Oh, let me tell you that in Guadalajara, they really know how to party.
You think?
Yeah. Well, Guadalajara is a great city for partying.
Yeah, I love Mexico. I absolutely love it down there. I hope someday I can move down there and buy a little villa on the water, surf in the morning, play a little golf in the afternoon, then go to the taqueria next door, and then come home and sleep, and then wake up the next day and do it all over again. That's my goal.
Yeah. Have you ever been in Mexico City?
I have never been to Mexico City. No.
Okay.
How's that? Have you ever been? No. Okay.
Hope pretty soon. The Pan Am Cup this year was scheduled to be here in Mexico, in Aguascalientes, I think. Probably next year because we love to organize Pan Am Cups.
Yep.
For the good and for the bad. We
Yep.
we love to organize Pan Am Cups, but well, for sure next year we will have the Continental Cup of beach volleyball, who gives the last tickets for the Olympics in Colima. Great place to be, great place to eat. I'll be there for sure. But well, I hope to see you pretty soon here in Mexico, or maybe I can visit you in Fairfax.
You come to Fairfax, my friend, anytime. We've got a room. In fact, there's your room right there.
Oh, really?
And
Thanks.
the golf course is literally right outside the door. And my
Oh.
wife's right upstairs. We make food and we have drinks. You, my friend, are always welcome.
Thanks. Hey, what do you think about my T-shirt?
I like your T-shirt. Is that one of the newer ones?
Yeah, they gave me this one last year. I think I don't remember if it was Josh Twaniga or Colton Cowell.
Oh, okay. I'll tell you what, you come visit me. I've got a lot of old USA volleyball swag. I'll get you a couple of things.
And George Mason gear, please.
And George Mason gear. I've got tons of that too. I might know a few people I can hook you up.
My friend Jay, thanks a lot for being here in the show. It was a pretty amazing talk with you. You're a very nice guy. Very fun talk. Please say hi to your lovely wife, Stephanie.
I will.
Please stay safe, man. Because I think the end of the COVID is near. It's more near than the beginning in March or February.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks, Alejandro. I had a great time hanging out with you tonight, bud.
See you, Jay.
All right, we'll see you, man. Take care.
Bye.